Good afternoon. Here is a sample of the presentation that you will need to put together to display your amendment from the Bill of Rights and how it has played out in the American court system. So the first thing that you want to do with Google Slides is create your slideshow to highlight the wording, not the pictures. Yes, we'd love it to be formatted and pretty, but the content is what's really the most important. So on your first slide, make sure that you clearly identify which amendment you will be talking about. In this example, I will be using the 9th Amendment. We also want to make sure that you give the exact wording of the amendment as stated in the Bill of Rights. In this case, the 9th Amendment is the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So basically, what the heck does that mean? We want you to go ahead and continue on that same slide or on the next slide, depending on how wordy your amendment is. To put it into language that we as 8th graders can understand in the 21st century. So basically what the 9th Amendment is saying is the rights of the people shall not be limited by the Constitution. And then give us some historical significance to this amendment. Why is it so important that the 9th Amendment be included in the Bill of Rights? What were our founding fathers thinking about? Basically, this amendment was added because some people, primarily the Anti-Federalists, feared that the Bill of Rights would be used to limit rights to those that were actually listed. The people had just finished fighting the Revolutionary War for their individual rights, and they wanted assurances that their rights as human beings would be forever protected. Now, this is probably one of the most important slides that you're going to give us. If you are going to talk about your amendment and how it plays out in the court system, you need to make sure that you give us the name of the court case that applies to it. So in this case, the case that I am using for the 9th Amendment is Raich versus Ashcroft. And then we don't want you to rewrite the entire case, just bullet point the important parts for us. So in this case, Angel Raich had a prescription to use medical marijuana to alleviate her pain. She grows her own cannabis for these purposes. On August 15th of 2002, the DEA, or Drug Enforcement agents, raided her home and destroyed all 6 of her cannabis plants. Her case was heard in the district court in California, where they upheld that the officers had the right to do so, and they denied her rights to have such plants in her house. She appealed her case to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals upheld the district court ruling. So she then furthered her case and took it to the United States Supreme Court. The decision of the Supreme Court. Basically, the Court of Appeals decision was overturned, and Raich was allowed to grow her own cannabis for medical purposes. This is exactly what the court said. But then they went on to say a few other things. So you want to make sure that when you're doing this, if you're going to give us a direct quote, that you put it in a quotation and you give credit where credit is due. So here we have the key reasons, as stated by the Supreme Court, was that Raich's physician determined that she, quote, cannot be without cannabis as medicine, end quote, because she would quickly, quote unquote, suffer, quote, precipitous medical deterioration, end quote, and, quote, could very well, end quote, die. So basically, we want to look at, was this decision really constitutional? And the Constitution of the United States of America does not address the area of illegal drugs. In fact, the Constitution doesn't address the issue of legal or illegal medication at all. This case involves multiple amendments, specifically the 9th and the 14th. It is primarily considered a 9th Amendment case because it focuses on the rights reserved to the people. And now finally, my opinion. Do I agree or disagree with this case? It doesn't really matter what I think about her growing medical marijuana. What matters is what I believe it was constitutional, and if the courts acted as constitutionally responsible as possible. So my opinion is I understand the ruling of the district court and the Court of Appeals. If the state of California has made it illegal to possess marijuana in any form for any reason, then they were well in their rights to uphold that law. I understand the Supreme Court ruling and the fact that the Constitution itself does not have any stipulation regarding any kind of medication, legal or illegal. And since this was prescribed by a doctor with the idea that she could possibly lose her life if she did not have this medication, with the Constitution guaranteeing the right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then the Supreme Court was well within its ruling, or its right to give the ruling that it gave. So in my experience, I believe that the final decision in this case was in fact constitutional. Now keep in mind, when you're giving your opinion, that you are giving your opinion about the constitutionality of the ruling, not your opinion about the case itself. So make sure that you understand the ins and outs of your amendment and the ins and outs of your case before you go ahead and give your opinion.